Welcome to Geopolitical Horizon. Today I'm going to look at the geopolitical and strategic implications of Russia's invasion into Ukraine and the ongoing war in Ukraine. First, President Putin made a fateful, historic and strategic error when he decided that Russian military forces would invade Ukraine on February 24th. We've seen a war go on now for 19 days, and we're seeing a humanitarian catastrophe unfolding in front of our eyes. Almost 3 million Ukrainian refugees have left Ukraine now for Europe, and we're going to see millions more refugees leaving Ukraine in the coming days, weeks, and months, depending on how long the war lasts. The Ukrainian and Russian government's positions seem too far apart for a peace agreement to be reached in the near future. However, there are negotiations ongoing almost every day now between the Russian and Ukrainian sides, so there could be movements in the negotiations that we are not aware of, but that remains to be seen. But unless they are able to move their positions and reach a peace agreement in the near future, the war could go on for up to 3 to 10 months or longer. That would have massive consequences. First, we've seen Europe and the United States relationship truly galvanized, reinvigorated. We're seeing the NATO community strengthened. We're seeing defense spending across Europe now being increased. Germany increasing by 100 billion euros in a one-off defense spending. They're going to increase defense spending by 2% of GDP annually going forward. We're also seeing other European countries following Germany on that. Therefore, I think we're going to see defense spending increasing across Europe. We're also seeing renewable energy increased in Europe. Therefore, basically, we're seeing how the war in Ukraine is now also triggering a renewable energy transition in Europe and fast-tracking it really going forward so that Europe's dependence on Russian energy supply will be lessened. That is going to be a major focus for Germany, particularly, and other countries that heavily rely on Russian gas supplies, particularly. The impact on the economy is major. We're seeing commodity prices increasing. We're seeing wheat prices increasing. Russia and Ukraine being major exporters of wheat. Therefore, this is going to impact food prices. The nickel prices has spiraled, which is going to impact the price of steel. It's going to impact a range of products going forward. Interest rates also increasing. Gas prices increasing. Brent prices increased, although gone down a little bit over the last days. Therefore, we're seeing major impact on a range of factors within the economy, macroeconomic impact, in addition to geopolitical impact. However, in terms of China's position, remains to be seen. Today, the U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan is meeting the chairman of the Chinese Central Foreign Affairs Commission, Yang Jiechi. They're meeting in Rome to discuss the situation in Ukraine. I think U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan will be very clear to the Chinese side that China should not support Russia militarily in the war in Ukraine, and that Russian companies and Russian banks and that Chinese companies and Chinese banks should not interact with the Russian side to ease the pressure of the sanctions against Russia. It remains to be seen how China responds to that. I think the Chinese-Russian relationship will remain strong despite however long the war in Ukraine lasts, so that will not change. I think it's very clear that the strategic partnership between China and Russia is strong and is very resilient. Therefore, one should not underestimate that. However, I think that some Chinese companies now and Chinese banks will be hesitant to trade with Russian companies and Russian institutions because of fear for the impact of the major sanctions on Russia. Therefore, while the Chinese-Russian relationship will continue, I think that we'll see some impact, and therefore the trade, which reached almost $150 billion between Russia and China last year, will probably not reach its $200 billion goal by 2024, as the Chinese and Russian governments had agreed on. Therefore, I think we're probably going to see some impact on the trade there. In addition, we are also seeing impact on the JCPOA agreements in terms of Iran and the easing of sanctions on Iran. Russia was very clear that they did not want the sanctions on Russia to impact Russia's trade with Iran if they reach the JCPOA agreement. But the U.S. side has been very clear, and now I think the U.S. side is also considering having a JCPOA agreement replicated, meaning a parallel JCPOA agreement without the Russian side. Remains to be seen how Iran would respond to that. Therefore, the JCPOA negotiations in Vienna are now basically a bit on hold because of the war in Ukraine. Remains to be seen how that evolves going forward. We're seeing also other countries that are heavily dependent on Russian trade also impacted. Countries in Central Asia are impacted, both because of remittances from people living in Russia sent to Central Asian countries, but also because of trade with Russia. So I think Central Asian economies will also now need to basically differentiate their trade relationships more going forward, and we're also going to see impact there. However, in terms of China's One Belt, One Road strategy, China's global infrastructure strategy, that will continue. However, because of the impact we're seeing on the Russia's economy and logistics companies now stopping supplies to Russia, we're going to see impact of the northern corridor in the One Belt strategy. That is the corridor that goes from Western China, across Central Asia, across Russia to Europe. Because we must remember that Russia is between Asia and Europe in the Eurasian continent. You can reach Europe from China, but then you have to cross either over Iran into Turkey, or you have to cross the Caspian Sea across the Caucasus to Turkey. I think that middle corridor from China across the Central Asian region into the Caucasus and Turkey will be strengthened. Therefore, I also think that China will increase its infrastructure spending in a range of projects in the One Belt, One Road strategy. So that will continue unabated. However, I think that there will be severe impact over time in the coming weeks and months in the northern corridor and the supplies of trade there through Russia to Europe. Going forward, depending on how long the war in Ukraine lasts, we will see major repercussions in economy, in the geopolitical spheres between Europe, between Russia. The question is, will the war spiral out of Ukraine? The Russian attack yesterday in the city near the Polish border is getting close now to NATO territory. Remains to be seen. I think that Russia will be very careful going forward, but there could be some spiraling. But I think there are very clear indications now that the NATO side and the Russian side do not want this to escalate into a confrontation between Russia and NATO, because that would have enormous consequences. We're going to continue monitoring this, but thank you so much for joining. Look forward to seeing you next time.